Hey, Yep.
All right, all right. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here today. Welcome to the Greek University Black History Month celebration. My name is Mike Eilon. We've got a great program for you today as our panelists start to decode Black history magic, including culture, community, campus, and career acceleration. We're going to be talking about normalizing anti-racist programs on our campuses for comprehensive development, the relevancy of Black history in fraternity and sorority life, the history of Divine Nine organizations and HBCUs, and some suggestions on how we can keep diversified programming going all year long instead of just thinking about it during Black History Month. Our panelists are some of the best speakers on campuses in the country. We have with us, starting with Stan Pearson II. He is an award-winning bilingual speaker, a motivational comedian, and an event host. He started as a busy student leader, evolved into a Capitol Hill intern, who would later commit to being a student affairs professional as the Associate Director of Student Activities at Texas A&M International University before he began touring as a speaker and a diversity consultant. He's spoken in over 40 states in the United States, in addition to Mexico, Spain, Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, Canada, and the British Virgin Islands. Next up is Robert Lawrence Wilson. He is a speaker, facilitator, and writer with expertise in diversity and inclusion, multicultural outreach marketing, and leadership development. He's the co-founder of the Culture Shift team and leads their diversity strategy development and training across all platforms and markets, from higher education and nonprofit to corporate. He also has served in executive roles at Nissan North America, including the company's first ever Director of Diversity and Inclusion. Next up is Dr. Jason L Merriweather. He is an experienced leader in higher education with research interests in hazing prevention, enrollment management, student retention, digital learning tools, adult student success, and social media engagement. Jason earned his Bachelor of Arts degree in communications from the University of Louisville. He earned that Master of Arts degree in psychology from Fisk University and earned the PhD in educational administration with a specialization in higher education leadership from Indiana State University. He currently serves as Humboldt State University's Vice President of Enrollment Management. Next up is Edson O'Neale. He grew up in the beautiful island of St. Croix, the U.S. Virgin Islands. As a college student, he was an outstanding student leader involved in student government, campus activities, student organizations, and of course, Greek life. Edson crossed the burning sands of the Roside chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated in the spring of 2004, and he never looked back. He graduated with a Master of Science degree in leadership in December of 2010 from St. Leo University, and then came back to work in student activities at his alma mater. He now serves as a student success manager for Thrive DX. And last but certainly not least is our moderator today. It is Miss Tish Norman. Tish has written several published articles, 5 books, and a forthcoming scheduled for release this December. Tish is a graduate of Kentucky State University, where she was inducted into Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. She has a Master of Arts in Education from Pepperdine University, and among a multitude of campus presentations, she has presented her doctoral research at the Dr. Joseph H. McMillan National Conference on the Black Family in America and the National Council for Black Studies. Her presentations have been delivered in 45 states, 14 countries, and Tish maintains a very active speaking schedule. So let's give a warm welcome to our moderator, Ms. Tish Norman.
Hey, everybody. Happy Black History Month. I am so glad to see each and every one of you. Thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy schedules to join us in what I would consider some of the dopest speakers in the game, convening tonight for a very necessary conversation on how we celebrate Black History Month, or either how we boycott Black History Month. Why would we boycott Black History Month? Because we don't want to just be confound until 1 month of the year, the shortest month of the year. We want to normalize our Blackness so that when we want to, we can celebrate Black history in September. We can celebrate Black history in August, and we can celebrate Black history any day of the week. And so it is our humble honor and privilege to be here tonight to have this conversation. And we want to honestly and earnestly thank Mike Ayalon, who is at the helm of the Greek University ship, leading us on college campuses, providing very relevant and timely program from coast to coast. And so we're happy to be able to pivot to this virtual platform this evening. And I do not want to belabor anymore. I want to get into this conversation. Some of these brothers who were on this call tonight, I have known for many, many years, and others we are getting to know and getting to know a little bit better as the years go by. So I am eager to prick their brains. I'm eager to hear their perspectives, and I know you are just the same. We have a lot of leaders on this call right now. We have a lot of affiliated members who are repping Greek letter organizations, Fraternity and Sorority Life. So you can either throw what you know right now, or you can represent in the chat. I want to see who's chiming in. I want to see where our people and who our people are representing. I saw some 06s, I saw some first fams. I got my girl T representing the finer ladies, the finer women of Z5B. If you are repping your organization and you bleed pink and green, and you bleed that black and old gold, and you bleed that crimson and cream, I need you to go ahead and represent in the chat right now. Yes, yes, yes. I think I will do the same because it's that kind of affair tonight. Yes, it is. All right, everybody, there we go. I knew we had some folk. Yeah, repping from where you are. All right, even if you're an IFC or Panhellenic, you can still rep your colors and rep your organization. All right. Yes, I see you, T. We got you, honey. All right, everybody, listen, we've got some great topics to cover tonight. I am really wanting to set the tone of our conversation with our panelists so that you, the advisors, you, the influencers, you, the leaders on your campus that are responsible for the development of our future leaders and our young people, I really want you to walk away tonight with some actionables. I want you to walk away tonight with some tools for immediate implementation. And so that will be our goal tonight. So if you want to, I invite you to take copious notes. If not, just tune in and we will have this recording available for you later. So let's jump right on in, everybody. Right now, I've got the first question of the night, and we're going to go ahead and why don't we kick it to Rob? I got my man Rob Wilson checking in from Nashville, Tennessee. For those of you who don't know, Rob Wilson is an expert diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant, giving his knowledge and sharing his expertise with Fortune 500 companies all over the planet. And so, Rob, I want you to answer this very first question.
No pressure.
No pressure, no pressure. I'm just throwing it to you first. What I want to know is how relevant is Black history in a 21st century America for the audience that we talk to, for that audience that is 18 to 22, 24, the current college student? How relevant is Black history in a 21st century America?
Yeah, I'm almost cutting you off. I'm so excited about answering that question because, in this day and age, with everything that's going on in the world, the future of the United States, this country that we love, is for it to be a multiracial democracy, right? That's where we're going as a country. In order to get there, you got to accept, you got to understand, you got to be able to speak. People have to be able to be themselves. People have to be authentic in who they are, right? And so what does that require? That requires all of us to lean into difference, lean into being inclusive, lean into learning about one another. Now we got this stuff going on in the world where we don't want to learn about each other anymore. I don't know where that's coming from, or what that's all about. Now we're not supposed to learn about each other, but I don't know where that is. But the future of this country and what's going to make this country great 100 years from now is our ability to lean into who we are across many different dimensions of difference. And so specific to Black History Month, there is no American history without Black history, right? I mean, African Americans, the role we played in the founding of this country, the role we continue to play in making this country the dynamic place that it has the potential to be, and it is many days. I mean, that's really, a lot of that is part of our culture and driven by our culture. It's amazing what 12% of the population has been able to contribute to the whole. So yeah, Black History Month is as relevant today as it ever is going to be. Within this group of 18 to 22-year-olds, they're ones who are going to take the lead. They're the ones who are going to make this country into what we want it to be. And so this period of learning that takes place for these students, I think this is the time. And like you said, I'm not going to steal your thunder, but this has got to be something that happens not just this month. Black History Month was started by African Americans as originally Black History Week, right? And so we expanded it to a month, and that's fine. But it needs to be something that throughout the year we're acknowledging, and not just Black history, all history, but certainly Black history is inseparable from the history of the United States and who we are as a country.
Thank you so much, Rob. And listen, just for all of our attendees that are going to be watching this tonight, I'm going organically on a flow. So I'm going to GWTF. I'm going to go with the flow. So there may be times that I come off of the script and the questions that I have already designated for our panelists, like I'm going to do right now. Stan, we saw an uptick in this quote unquote racial reckoning, right? That happened about almost 2 years ago in what I call a traumatic trifecta, right? The deaths and murders, they were all murders of Ahmaud Arbery right here in Brunswick, about 3.5 hours from where you and I live. Breonna Taylor, who was asleep in her home in her bed, as well as George Floyd, very public lynching that we saw. When we go to the mall, right, Stan, and we go to Bath and Body Works, and we go and run in Target, and since this racial reckoning that has taken place over these last 20 months or so, and we see the Black history display, we see the candles with the kente cloth wrapping, we see the Black Target, not the red and white Target, but we see the Black Target up in Target, specifically right there in the front of the store. How is that relevant, or is it relevant as we're talking about this particular season we're in of this racial reckoning? Is it just woke washing, or is this an authentic move from these companies?
You know, I don't know if everyone's ready for me, so I'm just going to warm into the conversation. I think that's probably best. Yeah. Hey, the truth is 90% of y'all are going to love me after this. 10% are going to pretend like you don't. So there's something that I feel Black people can be easy to pander to. So that means performing well for us. Well, hey, you noticed, you saw me? Oh, that's great. Because what we do know is that images control self-esteem, and we're in a society where self-esteem is driven by images and media. And so people are very smart. So it's not like, let's say Nike gives away free Nikes. No, they just make a black and red Nike and say, you should buy black, yellow, and red Nike. Say, hey, you should buy these because we care. Mm-hmm. And while I suppose I can appreciate the recognition, I am far past performative natures in people. Mm-hmm. I believe in economics over activism. That's what I believe in, economics over activism, because I know that you can't cash feelings in the bank. You can't deposit feelings and get something out. However, and this is let's say the accountability piece and the pandering piece, because doing the work, talking about the work is much more convenient than doing the work. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And far too many people know that they can talk about it and never have to really do anything. But that again just takes me back to the self-esteem of Black people and holding people accountable for not just making us feel good, but doing something that helps us be good. Mm-hmm. And in that same breath, and I'll be quiet, and then in that same breath, holding each and every person who says they love, care about, or see a Black person accountable. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That doesn't happen nearly as much as it could, because what I think a major problem is, there are people who like and love Black things, but don't like and love Black people.
I need you to say that again. I need you to say that again.
There are people who like and love Black things,
Yeah.
but do not like and love Black people.
Yeah.
And until we start checking that regularly, often, and even with our own people, like those target displays gonna still be working. Economics over activism. Appreciate you, Tish. Love y'all. Thank y'all for being here.
Listen, this is fantastic. If you are just tuning in, everybody, listen, you just heard from Stan. I call him Stanny. He just dropped knowledge where his underlying theme, you all, was action. That's what I heard. Did anybody else hear that? I heard the underlying theme was action. I'm reminded of a statement I heard, was it Chris Rock say, everybody loves Black people, but don't nobody want to be Black, right? And so I think about some of what Stan just illuminated as we're really talking and unpacking on the relevancy of Black History Month in a 21st century America. Let me move on to Dr. J. I got my man Jay Merriweather checking in from California. Jason, can we funnel this question a little bit? How can we address the relevancy of Black history or Black History Month in fraternity and sorority life? Some people may feel, I gave a speech some years ago, you all, where I held up a cup of milk. I had a clear glass, right? And I poured the glass of full of milk. And then I had some Hershey's chocolate syrup. And then I poured the syrup in the tall glass of the white milk. And you saw the chocolate saturate and fall all the way down to the bottom of the glass. And that was at AFLV years ago when it was MGCA, when it was back in St. Louis. Come on, somebody, all right? And what point I was illustrating then was how sometimes BIPOC and African-American students feel in a larger FSL community on their campus, particularly those students who are at PWIs. You're there, we can see you, but you're kind of saturated and you're at the very bottom when you've got a large majority who is really more visible. And how do you find your footing? How do you find your place? So I want to throw this question to Dr. Jason Merriweather and say, how does Black History Month situate itself in fraternity and sorority life?
I really appreciate this question. And many of us are Facebook friends. And so on Facebook, you know, I post mostly stuff with my children and athletics, but every now and then I'll get a good one in. And it was Valentine's Day. And, you know, I didn't post roses and I didn't post diamonds or Tiffany's. I posted a picture of my wife and I. And in that picture, I said, well, you know, Valentine's Day is a reflection of the other 364 days. And kind of moved on, you know. Now she posted the roses and that was cool. But I believe that we have to create dynamics on our campuses where it's a 365-day experience and not just a 28 or 29 every fourth year experience in terms of the framework. And so there are two quick routes I'll take with this, and they're all W's. There's a context of the work that has to happen. You know, unfortunately, it comes to a point where we have to position ourselves, and I'm gonna start before I go to the campuses with the graduates. I love the love on this call. I love the Greek shout outs. I love the letters. I love all that. But how many of us are preparing our undergraduate students for the war so that they can do the work? Two W's in, war and work so far. Because if we graduate and we're all good and we can show up, you know, at homecoming and be on the grill, but we're not investing in our chapters. We're not giving our chapters what they need in terms of preparation and education. We're not setting them up. We won our battle and we left them in the war. So first of all, we have to set our young chapters up for success. Now, once they're prepared with the nuances, and that also means financial support. You know, it's so wild to me when I see SAE and TEAC and Alpha Phi donate so much to the undergrad chapters, A Phi A and K Psi and Z Phi B and the other divine nine, we don't give back to our chapters so they can fight the fight because we know what they're dealing with. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't be me if I didn't start with our own internal accountability, particularly for NPHC. Okay. Now, once we have invested in our chapters, and you can check Alpha Pi at the University of Louisville, I give money. And that's why I can talk trash to them, because I invest in them. And I'm financial too. But now let's unpack this further. Once we have helped our younger brothers and sisters be ready to take it on, then we have to go back into the fact that we still become the work. We have to carry the cultural taxation. We have to carry the burden during Black History Month and beyond. When I was an undergrad at Louisville, Alpha Week was like the Super Bowl. Kappa Week was like the NBA All-Star Game. Delta Week was like the World Series. And we organized our stuff in such a way that we provide, and we're going to talk more about programming later, but we provided programming and context and opportunities for people and for students, because as NPHC goes, oftentimes the Black student experience follows. And so we have to invest and we have to build up, but there's a great cultural taxation that our students carry on our campuses, because unfortunately, as cool as it is to win the step show and as cool as it is, it's not about homecoming, it's all the work in between. So it's absolutely relevant for us to carry it, but it's a 365-day-a-year burden that our undergrad students carry. Retention, Black Greeks disappear, retention rates often have a direct challenge in terms of staying up. Yeah. Black Greeks are up, you see retention go up. The GPAs go down, you see it happen across the campus. So there's a representation. We also have to get our students, and I'll hush, involved in more than just Greekdom. Student government, right? Orientation leaders, resident assistants. We carry a burden. We carry that burden. I carried it, y'all carried it. And it's real at HBCUs too. I spent 10 years at Fisk. I love my HBCU experience. And it's real for those students too, absent the taxation. So you take a real hard amount of work and then you add the taxation to it, it gets real and wild. So it's relevant, but it's not just a month.
That's so good. Jason, I do have a question for you. What was AKA week like?
The Stanley Cup.
Okay, you know I had to ask what that Beta Epsilon chapter U of L was doing, all right? All right, listen, Ed, let's talk about decoding, right? Let's talk about deciphering. Let's talk about unpacking. What is, and I think you have a unique perspective on this because you are from St. Croix, all right? You are from the USVI. And I'd love for you to be able to share perspective as a man of color who is an island boy, right? But who, of course, lives in the United States and has done so for many years and is affiliated with a BGLO. Let's unpack what is Black culture? How do you understand Black community? How do you understand Black presence on today's college campus?
Great question, great question. I just want to say I'm very appreciative of the opportunity to be here with Rob, Tish, Jason, Stanley, and for everyone here. Thank you for coming out. To answer your question, Tish, it's really just putting in the time and effort and hard work. And I think it's knowing and believing in yourself and knowing your values. I think that's what it starts with. Coming from the islands, you know, I was born and raised in St. Croix, but my parents are from Trinidad and Tobago. So I had that aspect of learning what they learned growing up, as well as combining what I've learned to kind of bring my culture up as I've come here to the States. Now, coming here from the islands to the States, it wasn't too much of a hard transition for me other than just It's a lot more fast paced here, absolutely. And definitely, what's the best way to put it? I guess the manners, I guess the best way to put it, because in the islands, you always tell everyone good morning, good afternoon, good night. I'll tell someone good morning and they look at me like if I'm weird. And I'm just like, I'm just being cordial, guy. Like I'm just being like, I'm just saying good morning. What's up? I don't know what you want. I'm just saying good morning. So for me, recognizing that and understanding that I had to at times adapt to where I'm at and where my surroundings were at. I had to understand that when I'm in certain parts of certain areas, I'm going to respond to good morning, good afternoon, good night. But in the other areas I was part of, I understood that that when I said good morning, good afternoon, good night, they respond. So I think is knowing your value and learning when to adapt and pivot, and understanding who you are and what you bring to the table. So to develop our presence on a college campus, you have to look at what's there and what can you contribute for the common good to bring that presence on your campus. So if you notice that there's, at a conference last week when I was at SGLA, a student told me they don't have a Black Student Union or Caribbean Student Association. I said, well, why don't you start it? Oh, I can do that. I was like, well, you have to talk to your campus representatives, but if you feel that's a presence that's needed in order to promote the Black culture on campus and to help bring more awareness, why don't you start having those conversations? Yeah. So definitely looking at some of the things that where gaps are, things that are missing, and finding how we can fill those gaps to build our presence. But also for our advisors and institutions, I also feel we need to do a better job of providing the resources and making sure they're out there and available. Because sometimes our students or individuals want to put on these events or want to do these things, but they don't know how to. So what are we doing as campus-based professionals and as institutions to provide those resources and the avenue for students to get from point A to point B? As a professional at my previous institution, students will come and they will be lost. And that's why I used to teach the freshman course and I was a part of orientation because I wanted students to be aware, hey, here are the resources you have available to you. So if these are things you want to do and accomplish, these are the areas you can go to get to where you got to go.
Yeah, that's good.
To help.
Tish, sorry. So go ahead, Edson, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say to help build that presence, seeing where the gaps are and using the resources that we have to get to where we got to go to get from point A to point B. And don't be scared to take risks and ask questions. I think that's knowing our value and being able to really take on what sometimes most people might be scared to do. And that's what will set you apart from others.
But who do you mean, Ed? Who do you mean don't be scared to take a risk and ask questions? Do you mean the advisors? Do you mean the Black students? Do you mean white student? Who do you mean? Everybody?
Everybody as advisors, white students, Black students, Hispanic students, Asian, Indians, whoever. If there's things that you want to, that you believe that this will be important for not only you, but important for the university, for your group, for anything inspire change, why can't it be you?
No, that's good.
Why can't it be you? We're so scared because we're scared that it won't work, and it's just like, go for it.
Ed, let me jump in here, Ed, because Rob, I was actually coming to you next because
I'm just, yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No.
You say your point and then I'll jump in right after you.
Well, you know what, Edson, what you were saying just resonated with me so much. I was a 17-year-old kid at the University of Michigan. I had never led anything in my life, okay? And there were upperclassmen and administrators who saw something in me that I didn't even know was there, okay? And they encouraged me to take different leadership positions. And I did it, and I found out I was pretty darn good at that. What they saw was real. And while I was on that campus, I was a person that identified things that were, other people said could not be done. Other people said, we don't do that here, right? And I said, why not? Right, and I did it. And I worked the system, I worked the campus, but you know, we're talking about Black history, that's Black history, right? That's what we've been doing the whole time.
Rob,
Right?
can I ask you, who,
Go ahead. Yeah.
these administrators who saw greatness in you, these administrators who saw potentiality in you, were they white? Were they Black? Were they male? Were they female?
You know what? They were, the biggest ones were administrators of color. You know, there were several Black women, you know, an Asian woman that saw something in me. Again, let me tell you where it started though. It started with the older students, because those are the people that you're interacting with more than any administrators, any more teachers. It started with them, but then those administrators as well. So, I mean, I think this message across the board, you know, for those of you who are joining, who are in those positions at your universities, it don't gotta be a Black person, right? You know, just know that a part of our history is doing the hard stuff. Black people have been doing the hard stuff for a long time, right? We've been doing the hard stuff. And so, you know, it's not to put the burden on people, but you got some kids who just are on fire and ready to make a change, ready to make a difference, and can do some stuff that people on this call have never even thought of. And they're ready to do it. And so we got to make sure we provide the opportunities, the encouragement for them to do it, and not fall back into, well, this isn't how we've been doing this so far. This is how we normally do it. Can't fall back into that, because these kids are they're gonna create that next generation. And again, that's what Black history is. We've been doing that. If you name the figure within Black history, you know, I think Carter G. Woodson started Black History Month is who that started by. That didn't exist before he started it, but he said we need this, right? So, you know, I love what you said there, Edson, because it reminded me of my own history as a student.
No, that's a good point that you make, Rob, because I want to challenge all of our FSL advisors on here and to even share with your colleagues, how many of you really know the students that you advise? How many of you actually know the students you lead? Have you scheduled fireside chats with your organizations that you lead so that you can know their names? I know sometimes the communities are big. I know and you're only one person, but how many people do you know? Not who just know you, but have you taken the opportunity, be it Zoom or in person, to introduce yourself, to say who you are, to know who they are, so that you could be that source of influence? Because I've said this before, I think it was at AFA back in December. If you are in higher ed, even if you're not a professor, you're a teacher. You are an educator. You are a professor. You are a source of influence and information on campus. And so what have we done with that responsibility? Are we just complaining about how we're zoomed out and how things are changing on campus? Or are we actually in the business of investing in the students that we serve? It's called servant leadership, okay? I want to shoot this over to Stan before I go to Jason. Stan, decode, unpack, decipher what community means to you as we're talking about Black history magic, right? We know community shows up in different ways. Community is present in the Black church. Community is present in neighborhoods. Community is present right here in, you know, D9 organizations and such. What decode community and or culture? And that's what I really want to say, Stan, because I know you put a pretty provocative post up on Facebook several weeks ago, and folks came for you. So what unpack decoding Black culture and community?
Yeah, people tried to take my livelihood, call me everything but a man of God. Real quick, I am going to say, you know, there's they really did, and then deleted it, but I screenshot some stuff. Anyway, so really quick to the Zoom fatigue thing. I'm like that. I really think Zoom fatigue is code for boring. No one's like, I have in-person fatigue. So really begin to talk to folks about, hey, this could have been an email, or like really getting into the culture of how can we make meetings short, sweet, and if it's long, make it 2 of them. Anyway, that's for a whole other conversation. But I think community can be complex because Black Americans specifically are extremely fractured. We're broken in so many ways that isn't talked about in context. So there are folks that say we're not a monolith, but those very folks, if you act outside of the stereotype, well, then you become the outlier. And I'll share the quote I made, the meme I shared as best I can. It said, strip clubs, trap music, and dysfunction are not Black culture. I said that. And I also shared it in a Black SAP group. I mean, I'll say it because maybe some of you all here saw it. I shared it in groups because I thought it was important, because I know that there are other folks that have a job to do and a responsibility just in life. But I also understand that there are certain things that as Black folks, we must do ourselves. We must do them. Now, to provide even more context, because I did then also, but it wasn't received well, is to say, hey, all these other things are things that Black people and that people do. Like, they go to strip clubs, they listen to trap music. There are some dysfunctional things, but to label that as part of our culture, to have elections in Atlanta be said, for there even to be rumors or discussions about, oh, this person running for office said that they might shut down strip clubs and that affected the number of votes they got. Really, Black people? Really? Anyway, so my idea of community is truly, it's like family. You don't always love family. You don't always like family, but it's family. But it's become so popular to destroy one another and be divisive that we would rather do that than create better community. And I feel like we have the ability to grow together, love together. But in 2022, I'm still on campuses where Black kids are coming to me saying, hey, can you lose Blackness? Because they're still being challenged, as I was in 1987 about not being Black. And the only time someone white ever felt comfortable saying to me I was the whitest Black guy they knew is when someone Black gave them the pass to say so. And in 2022, we're still there.
Yeah.
So in part, and then I'll close, is Black kids are like, and they've also said they don't necessarily like this, like they're trying to be Black, not knowing that being Black isn't what you listen to, the clothes you wear, the music you listen to, like it's who you are. And no one can take that away. However, images control self-esteem. So we have so many young folks trying to go to school and be a student and also trying to be Black. And we know how that's portrayed on TV and in music and everything else. So I feel like from a community standpoint, if we can really just love from the inside out, I got buddies here that are tatted from head to toe, and we're still people. We're really, really smart, but as smart as we are, we're easily manipulated into thinking that we are the very monolith that should be hunted down and hurt the way that we're being. And if we just got more intentional about how we create and build community, we'd be so much better off. Again, it's like being Black isn't something you can do. It's who we are. And knowing who you are can help all of these other issues from a root standpoint moving forward.
Yeah, that's so good. I heard have the conversation. I heard Black culture is multifaceted. I heard Black culture is a tapestry. I want to get into this though. We're talking about normalizing anti-racist programming on campus. I think I need to break that down real quick because I'm coming to Ed and Jay. We're talking about, and I want to challenge, first of all, if you're just tuning in, you have joined some of the best campus speakers in this country, decoding Black history magic, sponsored by Greek University. We have Edson O'Neale, Stan Pearson, Dr. Jason Merriweather, Rob Wilson. I'm having a brain fart, guys. And it is being moderated by myself, Tish Norman. If you are on here and you are still with us, everybody put I am in the chat right now. If you are getting some good stuff, I want you to put I am in the chat right now. If your boo, if your colleague, if your director or your supervisor is not on this call, you text them right now and tell them they are missing the party and they are going to miss, and they are going to just have to hear tomorrow morning everything that everybody was talking about tonight. All right, so you text them and share the link. We have a few more minutes that we are getting in this good conversation. I see you, Abigail. I see you, Madeline. Y'all are still rolling with us. I want to put three terms, okay? I want to put three terms in front of the audience tonight: racist, non-racist, and anti-racist, okay? Racist, non-racist, and anti-racist. And the question that I want to pose next, and I'm coming to Dr. J, what are the benefits? I mean, we can probably articulate them, right? But what are the benefits for a new SA professional, for a new FSL professional in higher ed to implement anti-racist programming on campus, specifically anti-racist programming?
Okay, I hope you still love me after I answer this question.
I need you to go on and put it down, and I'm gonna pick it right on up.
So I believe we have to be cautious, particularly with our new professionals and even with students as well, that we don't load our younger professionals and first-time professionals with this language in these really groovy social justice terms without having actually taken the time to contextually educate them about what they mean and what it means in the workplace. I believe we have to be really, really cautious in grad school that while there may be tremendous things that go on in the classroom, that's great, but the translation of that into the workplace comes with a couple of things. And the first one is accountability. And the second one is research. And the third one is strategized practice. If we are so triggered by any and everything, how on earth can we develop our students such that they can navigate it? Let's unpack that just a little bit. Anti-racist work. I'm gonna hurt some folks.
I need you to talk, Jay.
Doesn't mean that we walk around labeling everyone who disagrees with us as a racist.
Right.
It doesn't mean that we become anti-white or anti-conservative. I'm sorry, friends, but every Republican is not a racist. If you didn't know that, I might get canceled for this, but I will be like Dave Chappelle. Let you cancel me. No, I'm playing. But seriously, every Republican, every white person is not a racist who is out to harm you. Or to harm our organizations. There is a stark difference between structurally racist things and privilege and we just don't like this, so now you're a racist and I gotta hate you. Guess what? If we don't engage in a process of dialogue, we lose the few opportunities we have to educate. My friends, if we are triggered, I know my triggers. I'm not gonna say them on here because I ain't gonna let nobody use them against me, but I know my triggers. And when I trigger, my dean of students is Dr. Ebony Ford Turnbow. And if I know my trigger is on, Dr. Ebony is from East Detroit. But I can call her and say, yo, Doc, I need you to step in here. I need a moment. Because if I do, I'm gonna take all of us down with me if I do this, right? And so I'm giving that context sincerely to say that if we have not addressed the structural abilities and the strategies and the things that it takes to be able to navigate anti-racist work, we lose. I'll give you an example. I was in a space not long ago where one of my colleagues, who was a Hispanic female with a PhD, was speaking. And another colleague decided to really come hard at her about her intellectual capacity. So I stepped in and just said, let me please take a moment to say that I do think my colleague gets this. Let me explain what my colleague is saying. Let me offer context to my colleague. And then I said, but it is such a shame that as a male, I have to, gosh, it's such a shame that as a male, I've got to speak after one of my female colleagues for what she said, because I said the same thing she said. And now the easy thing is, oh God, I'm having to mansplain or mansplaining. No, we can't do that, because that wasn't my moment. It was to use because as a VP, I have a degree of privilege. So sometimes I have to use my the degree of privilege I have. Now I'm Black first,
Mhm.
and it can get stripped in a minute. But I'm saying that to say there are technical tools that we have to prepare our new professionals to fight with for anti-racist work. And it is not moving by being triggered. You're not wrong for being triggered. I'm not trying to invalidate your feelings, but that's not the move that's going to change the institution. And we can't leave ourselves on islands. We can't tell people their feelings don't matter, but we have to position ourselves to strategize through anti-racist work, because I'm pretty sure Dr. King used a strategy. I'm pretty sure Stokely Carmichael used a strategy. I'm pretty sure A. Philip Randolph used a strategy. I'm pretty sure we can go on down the line.
So Jason, are you saying to incorporate a level of education in this anti-racist programming? Just don't think you can implement anti-racist programming on campus without the opportunity to educate and quote unquote have the conversation. Is that what I'm
That is correct. And to what I said in the chat, we also can partner with people. One of the things I'm most proud of from my undergrad days at Louisville, not all the things I had to repent for, but something I'm actually proud of from my undergrad days at Louisville, was Alpha Phi Alpha. We partnered with Teak on programs, not just a party. And we did that too, and that was cool. It was live, but we had programs, educational programs. We partnered with our brothers from IFC. And that was okay, because sometimes colleagues actually want to do anti-racist work, but they don't know how. And if they say the wrong thing and we attack them, we've lost a partner. So I just hope that context is really helpful, that if we get triggered by something, that's cool. Have your feeling, find a healthy way to deal with it, but we can't position ourselves and we take away the opportunities to be strategic and to partner, or the anti-racist work is knocked down before it begins. I hope that's helpful. And I hope
it is interesting because, you know, it's nothing new that a lot of racially driven and racially offensive activity comes from fraternity sorority life. We have seen it with bananas. We've seen it with chants. We've seen it with spray paint. We've seen it with, cultural misappropriation, even recently. Okay, so it was embedded into the fiber of these organizations. We get it, right? However, Rob, I want you to unpack that maybe even a little deeper in terms of the relevancy of anti-racist program. How do we get IFC and Panhellenic organizations to understand and maybe even separate themselves from a very racist, very racially turbulent history and past that their organizations were established upon, or what the culture of their organizations? How do we explain the relevancy of that now?
I think, number one, you can't have a conversation about, this is how I teach it, okay? You cannot have a conversation about anti-racism without having a conversation about privilege. And I think Jason was speaking to that same piece. You have to talk about privilege. You have to understand how your privilege, it covers you in a way. You know what, someone gave me this analogy, Tish, I thought was great. We talked about the movie The Matrix. I thought that was a great analogy, right? Because you get all these people who are just working through life, and there's this entire system that's going on. They have no idea it exists. But once you see the system, you see it everywhere, right? It becomes really clear to you that it's there. But you have to understand your privilege first in order to understand, that privilege for me is like that. Is it the blue pill or the red pill? The blue pill is the one you can see, but the red, which you guys get it. The privilege to me is
blue pill.
The blue pill is the one allows you to see this world that's out there that you don't necessarily see. I put in the chat, I just want to emphasize this because I have clients who come to me all the time, from fraternity sorority organizations to nonprofits to corporations to government entities, who say, you know what, we had a meeting last week, our diversity committee had a meeting, and we decided that we're going to be anti-racist. And I'm like, are you? Yeah, we're going to be anti-racist. So I feel like, okay, can you describe for me what that means for you? Because that sounds good. That sounds good. Like, who would say that they are not? What's the opposite of that? Pro-race, right? But people don't know what it means. So they take this on, and they do a shoddy job of it because they're not doing the building blocks it takes. And frankly, it's certainly true to some degree for Black people, but we're living this every day in a way that you just don't live it in the same way if you're white, right? Again, that's we're talking about privilege there. I know some people be offended by that, but there's a reality to privilege. And if you're in the majority, and if you're white, you have the ability to experience some elements of racism, but not like me as a Black man and everywhere I go all day, every day, right? And being confronted with it, right? So you have to break that stuff down, and there are building blocks you need to go through in order to understand, what kind of accountability you are taking on when you decide that you want to go there. So I'm not telling people not to go down that path. I'm telling people you got to do the work to understand what this means, if this is a direction that you're going to go in for your organization. And oftentimes at the undergraduate level in particular, you'll see some interest in going down that path, or you might see it even at the head office level. My question is always, what are you going to do when your alums, and I'm talking about IFC and Pan-Held for the most part, what are you going to do when your alums come to you and say, why are we doing this? What is this about? I don't agree with this. I'm not, these are my beliefs that I am not racist, and you're suggesting that I am. Are you prepared to have that conversation? Are you prepared to give people like that resources so they can get past that? But more than that, are you prepared to tell some of your alums, this is the direction the organization is going? So I think you have a decision to make about whether you're gonna go with us.
That's a bold step. And
but anti-racism requires you to do that. It requires you to do that. And a lot of organizations, people are unwilling to do it.
Absolutely. Anti-racist is advocacy. It is action. It is standing up. It is having the sweaty under the arm conversation when you would normally flee, right? You would speak up. You would give voice to injustice, not just letting it slide under the rug and say you love everybody. That's a non-racist. So if we want to break it down, non-racist, anti-racist, and racist, once again, like Stan said earlier, that's a whole nother workshop.
Hey Tish, if an organization wants to be non-racist, I applaud them. I will help them down that path, but just be non-racist. But don't say you're anti-racist when really you're non-racist, because anti-racist requires you to uncover, to deconstruct, to redo things that are maybe that you got to determine, what am I willing to give up? What am I going to have to give up? Okay, I'm done. Thank you. You just got excited, Tish.
That's so good. And we want to challenge all of our advisors on this call tonight, and for you to share with your teams and your colleagues at work. Are we an anti-racist department? Does my campus want to be an anti-racist campus? That doesn't mean you make some signs and you go and you march downtown for the Black Lives Matter movement. That's not what anti-racist means. Anti-racist is what Rob just said. You are willing to deconstruct. You are willing to tear down and then rebuild. You are willing to hit the reset button, and you're willing to have the difficult conversations. You're willing to jump into the pool without a life jacket on so that you can express your humanity in a way that has not been seen or recognized before. Let's wrap this up, because I don't know about you all. Stan, I was like, we could go another app.
Real quick, I know folks got a place to be. I definitely
Go ahead.
I mean, I love a documentary where they mentioned earlier, like kind of different languages and cute languages to choose. And then, Robert mentioning the word privilege, that because then people, when they hear that, they're like, oh, well, I'm poor, so I'm not. And it's this way to quickly disqualify yourself. No, I'm just like you. I am this. It's like, not exactly. So again, breaking it down for people to the smallest sense, it's like in the very beginning, like, have you ever heard of, did you know about Tulsa, Oklahoma and and the massacre? Did you know that Central Park wasn't always Central Park? Do you know about the hundreds of atrocities, which hundreds and hundreds and thousands of women and children and men? I mean, did you hear about any of those things? No, you never heard of them. Okay. Did you know, because even in growing up, in social studies class or in history class, I always learned about conquistadors. I learned about every war that was won. Black people, because again, our history started to slavery pretty much, like we were talking about in America, but every white kid in class always learned that anyone who won a war looked like them. Every single Black person you learn about from the time you were a kid till they've grown up, they've either been enslaved, or even if they were good people, they were assassinated, i.e. Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr. These are ways to help people understand what privilege is, because part of privilege is not ever having to know the sins of your forefathers. So to never know that, hey, did you know that whites and immigrants were given hundreds and hundreds of thousands of acres of free land or land on discount that were supposed to go to enslaved people? Oh, you didn't know that? Because I don't know any poor Black people that have farms, but I know a lot of poor white people that have farms and land. How did that happen? So again, to Robert's point, I think questions are really, really powerful, and that helps open people up, because we're a nation of people that we feel like we know everything, especially when we mess around and get a couple degrees. So now the question is like, hey, or so now it begins like, hey, let's ask some more questions. Oh, you didn't know that? Oh, you didn't know? Like, how would that affect your life if you were in class and you never saw anyone that looked like you win? Even on the smallest level of our psychological and emotional development is affected by even those images as children. Love you, Tish. Love all y'all. You've been amazing. Appreciate you.
It's so
That's so true.
you're so right. You're very true. Let me do this. We've got a poll real quick before it's time to go, everybody. I want you to answer this first question right now. All right. I'm not trying to shame anybody. We all grown folks here. Go ahead and answer this poll for our panelists as well as our attendees. What year did you graduate from high school? Go ahead and select it and then submit. Go ahead and select and submit. I'm going somewhere with this. I'm going somewhere with it. All right. So it looks like we have a majority. Okay, so we've got a few millennials on here. All right, perfect, good. So mostly folk came out in 2012 and through 2022. Go ahead and let's have that next poll up as we celebrate this palindrome. Is that right? Is that the correct term today, everybody? We are at 2/22/22. The last time we had one of these was December the 12th, 2012. When it was 12/12/12. And the next one will be in 2222. That'll be the next palindrome. All right, answer this question, guys. Have you ever taken a course or even was a course offered in your high school and or college in Black history? I'm sure it may have been offered, but maybe not in high school. Answer the question. Let's see what these results are. Have you ever taken a Black history course? As we turn this final corner, because what Stan just talked about was the relevance and the connectability of BIPOC communities in their studies, in the books they read, seeing it in class. Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. Yep, that's exactly what I thought. Not that you didn't have the class, but maybe that it wasn't offered. So if we see and we demand that Black history be accepted more readily, rather than the other, but as American history, then maybe we could see some change. Let's have our panelists offer each of you in your final words. Give our programmers, give our professionals an idea, a recommendation of how we can or they can implement Black history every day. What is a programmatic idea? What is something in your creative imagination or that you have seen work that student organizations, that Fraternity Sorority Life can use via social media, via campus presence, or the like? Let's start with Edson O'Neale. Give your final words and let that be a programmatic recommendation for our professionals.
Wow, this was amazing. It was definitely amazing. Something they can do to make sure that Black history is celebrated every day. For me, and I'm going to talk from experience, I think is really being true to who you are and really really providing those avenues and those areas for our students of color. And I think is putting together resources and ideas of seeing people that look like you being successful. So maybe bring in a speaker who owns businesses so that he can talk and say, this is where I was and this is how I got to where I was, and to give people the steps of, I was in your shoes and this is where I am now. So if you want to get there, you can get there. You know, provide maybe doing like a mentorship program. So pairing, you know, an incoming freshman with an upperclassman, and, you know, being able to provide a mentorship or with a peer or in an administrator within the university to provide that mentorship and that guidance to be able to really support and to motivate and to inspire. You know, because when you have those individuals in your corner all the time, you know, it really inspires and bring about, you know, definitely, you know, the motivation to, I can do this.
That's good.
You know, so I think, I mean, I'm not gonna take too much time because I know we have other panels and they have some other good ideas as well, but it's definitely, I think if there's more of a mentorship program provided, and not only with the students, but also within the administration, you know. So for me, when I was working at a previous institution, there was a man of color, a Black man, who was the vice president of admissions, and then there was a Black woman who was the dean of her program, and I would have meetings with them all the time. And I would ask them, you know, as a Black man and working at PWI, how do I overcome these stereotypes? How can I do to make sure that I'm a better professional? What can I do to assure that I'm providing students of color the avenues to be successful? And not only
So
that,
you reached out to them. You reached out to them.
I reached out to them. I reached out to them and I took the initiative.
Yeah.
You know, so and it was very helpful.
Yeah.
You know, so
Oh, that's a good tactic.
mentorship programs, and then just providing resources and avenues, and, you know, just having those types of programs to showcase what we do. There's a lot of ideas I can think of, but again, I don't want to take the thunder away from anyone else. But
I know, because we got to wrap it up. But
right,
thank you so much for that, Ed. No, I loved how you talked about reaching out, because sometimes, you know, the professor or the mentor is not going to come knock on your door. You got to go knock on their door. So that's fantastic. Rob, one final takeaway for these professionals to give some programmatic attention to normalizing Black History 365.
You know, one idea I have is do a Shark Tank. Right, and so get some fraternity sorority members from different organizations, right? That's also involving our Black fraternity and sororities as well. Bring them together so that you're bringing this really cross-functional group of fraternity sorority members, and give them that as a project, and, you know, sweeten the pot. Give them $5 grand, $7,500, whatever the number is that you can afford for the winner. You know, you can, hey, and here's another thing you do, invite us in to judge it, okay? Invite us in to judge the contest, but, you know, challenge them with, you know, what is a way for us to elevate Black voices on our campus? How do we do that? And you could do that for any number of different concepts that you have with your programming, but this is one example of it. And like I said, sweeten that pot. And some of you may be hearing like $5,000, $7,500 for this thing. Again, we're talking about anti-racism and who we elevate and who we center on and where we put our resources. You have to do stuff like this, right? You can't say, well, this is just the Black students. I don't know if I want to do that. We're talking about being anti-racist, right? So again, that's just an example. That Shark Tanks are great. It's fun. Everybody loves that. It's fun to create. It's fun to innovate. And again, I talked earlier about students having these ideas, and are we giving them the platform to be able to take them forward? So whoever gets the best idea, you know, write them a check. Whether it can go back to the organization that they're part of. There's a bunch of different ways to do that. But to me, that's a great way to, again, to elevate this topic in a way that's going to be fun for students.
Fantastic idea. Stan, listen, we go to campuses, we see the BSU having a soul food dinner. We see them playing Black Panther, a screening of Black Panther. We see them having a, Black history trivia kazoo. What is it called, y'all? Kahoot, right? Stan, what can we do beyond the trivia, beyond the soul food dinner, which really ain't soul food, it's high diabetes and high blood pressure food. Come on, for real, Black people, eat some real food, all right? And the screening of Black Panther. What programmatic ideas and recommendations can you make for our professionals online? And Bernie, we're gonna read yours in a minute. Great suggestion from him.
Yeah, again, we get caught up in what's popular sometimes, which is cool. There's a benefit to that, I suppose. But I really like the collaboration piece. And even if it's not across IFC or, Panhellenic lines, the collaboration within the Divine Nine in general, like that has to begin to happen more to hold each other accountable. Because the truth is, if we're not holding each other accountable for the way that we collaborate and we try to cross the aisle, I think y'all not even do. Is that fair? No. Should we always have to do the work? No. Mm-hmm. However, if it's really important that folks know where I come from and where we come from, then I want to be a part of that. So I would honestly say, I think the collaboration piece is huge. And you could very easily have a roundtable once a month. You're like, nah, but again, this is not for the pro that's on the call right now, the advisor that already has so much to do, overworked, sometimes underappreciated, but we love you. This is something that they take on. That once a month there's a roundtable, and guess what? There's a subject around that roundtable. So every month or maybe every other week, we're doing that. Mm-hmm. And is there a couple people who are assigned to that who have to come? Like you have to have representation come. Again, to Robert's point, you can say, but they already. Are we being anti-racist or not? Because it's all well and good until a tragedy strikes, and then when a tragedy strikes, the phone lines are blowing up. So I think it's more than fair to say, hey, once a month, we have a roundtable. Oh snap! The subject today is, the guy who created the whatever, and then we have a roundtable about that once a month.
I love it.
And we show up. And when folks don't show up, it's not it's me checking my frat brother, but then it's also someone from Phi Delta Theta or Teak saying, yo, where were you? Because we're all trying to build this community. Because back to your initial point, like community is the whole. A campus is a city, a family, and what affects one affects all in some way. And you don't want to wait until it's too late before you start caring.
So good. So good. I love it. Stan just basically told us to have the conversation. Have the conversation. Come on, Dr. Merriweather. Give the people a final recommendation on some programmatic ideas that they can implement on their campus and with the organizations that they lead.
My colleagues have done such a good job. There's not much left on that. So I want to offer something different. And that is, how do we pay for all these ideas? There is this really unique adage that I talk about when I do conduct organizational development training. And that is, show me your budget and I'll show you what you truly believe as an institution. So let's talk about how to be creative to have resources to support this plethora of tremendous ideas. As an example, on my campus, I'm gonna give you a real world example. We have cultural centers. We have El Centro, our culture for Hispanic students. We have the Umoja Center, cultural for Black students. We have the Asia Pacific Islander Center. We have ITEP, which is for American, Native and Tribal. The Eric Rofus Center. There's California, we have centers for everybody. The Eric Rofus Center for LGBTQ students. We have the Social Justice Center on top of all those, which is like the multicultural center. Mm-hmm. So, and then there may be some more, and if I left anyone out, hopefully I don't get in trouble if no one on my campus sees this. So when I arrived, everyone was like, oh my gosh, cultural centers have no funding, and this, and that, and we got to get more money for the cultural centers. I was like, you're right. And if I want to be in this job as vice president, I need to figure out a way to create it. But I didn't have it in my base budget, so I either need to cut something to pay for it, cut someone to pay for it, or be creative. So I decided to take a bold move. I went to my foundation, and my VP for fundraising, who is white, because remember, it's okay to work with white people too to do this stuff. You know, let's be real about that. So I go to my VP for the foundation. I'm like, yo, man, Frank, what can we do? I need to come up with some creative ways to support the cultural center. Oh yeah, I absolutely believe we have to support the cultural center. Cool, so what you gonna put on it? And he went into the foundation and found a fund and worked with donors, a diverse array of donors who wanted to support cultural centers on campus. Because you know, we've talked about this in a number of different ways. You can't work with folks if you're demonizing them, right? And there are people who truly want to help. And so, you know, all those donors were not Black and brown. They weren't. But we put a lot of money together, and we added programming funds just for the cultural centers. That's their money, exclusive for their programming. So it's cool to want to do this stuff, but someone has to pay for it. So now we can say we believe it. When we got HERF money, these campuses got all this CARES and HERF money. We dedicated money to our cultural centers. We dedicated money to programming and retention efforts to support. So universities have this money, but we have to invest. And so the strategy becomes, okay, I get that you believe in this. It's cool. It's cool. But if your concern is not supported by cash and revenue, it's just concern. And so it's leveraging the budget systems on our campuses to support these initiatives, long-term foundations. You know, and remember, I started by saying if Black Greeks are doing something, then we need to be accountable and give back, right? Yep. We have to also expect ourselves to give back and not always expect someone else to fix the problem for us. Yep. Let's just keep it 100.
So good.
And if we're giving and if we're doing that, then if I go back and say, yo, MPAC had the MPAC has an 87% giving rate. The alumni giving rate is 31%. MPAC is giving better than alumni. What are you going to put in? Then I've got a framed argument that makes it difficult to argue with.
That's good.
And we may not want to play, it should be altruistic. I'm sorry, it's not. Yeah. It's a strategy. And so I hope that's helpful. So use these foundations, fundraising opportunities, all these things that the university is doing. If people care so much, they need to put some coin on it, to use that nomenclature.
Not put a ring on it, put some coins on it. That's right, everybody. I am so full right now. We are not ending this Zoom on empty. We are ending this Zoom on full. I want to say thank you to my brother, Edson O'Neale, Dr. Jason Merriweather, Stanley Pearson, and Robert Wilson, as well as our compadre, Michael Ilon, for supporting this wonderful event tonight. Everybody, listen, our information is in the chat right now. If we have not been to your campus, we are on the way. So you make sure that the programming thrusts that you have coming up the rest of this semester, this summer, and even into the fall, when you need to diversify your speaker pool, when you need to have a massive dose of motivation, and when you need strategic training, implementation, and information, you just turn the page to Greek University and find Ed, Jason, Stanley, Robert, and myself, Tish Norman. We are so thrilled and excited that you joined us tonight, and we will see you on the next go round. My name is Tish Norman, and I'm dropping the mic. Thanks, everybody.